thank you for inviting me to this. This is fun. I'm at a point right now where I'm trying to put a research program back together after basically 6 years of not doing research. So I'm going to all kinds of places and, you know, remaking connections to people who I've had connections with over the years. So this is really fun. So I want to answer, I want to, in my discussant role, address 3 issues. One of them is, why should we care? And why do we care about this stuff? The second is, what do we know? And particularly, what do we know about what's hard? What do we know about the opportunities? And the third thing is, what do we know about necessities as we move forward? And the third thing I want to focus on is, how can we make a difference? Okay, and I can tell you right now that I'm going to end with what people heard me say many times at the National Science Foundation when I was there. Don't forget, we're talking about designing the future. We're not just talking about making things happen in today's classrooms. So that's my mantra. Many of you have heard me say that many times. So these guys in their talks did not so much talk about why do we care about having kids learn in some way to be data users, manipulators, analyzers. I'm not going to say data scientists, because I think we don't care so much about having kids become data scientists. Some may become that someday. But if we're talking about the K-12, we're talking about little kids and on through high school, okay, then what we actually care about is their basic literacy with data. We want them, when they become curious, to understand, to know how to, and to take initiative to explore their environments, to collect data from wherever the places are they can collect data from, and to be able to use that data to help them answer their questions, become curious about other things. We want them to be able to understand data as evidence. Okay. We want them to, engage, to become curious, engage really nicely with their world. Michelle gave this long list of these things. And we want them to be able to use data when they're learning disciplinary stuff. We want them to be able to make sense of data to help them learn. So I think that Rogers is right. I love that he didn't in his slides that I got sent before this to comment on. He didn't have the words to the song, but I laughed when he put the words to the song up there, because I think that is what it's about. It's about living in the world, getting to wherever we are in the world and living in that world. And why do we want people to understand data? Why do we want them to be able to analyze data? Because we want them to be able to live really well in the world that they live in. And some of those people will become data scientists someday. That's very, very fine. I liked Andy's point that she got from the, what was it, the 1969 or 79 or something document? 89. 89. Okay, but it could have come earlier. As in literature, we introduce kids to reading and telling stories so early, in so many different ways. And yeah, I'm an advocate for doing that. That was when I read that last night, in your slides. I mean, I just got so excited by that, say that's so smart. And then I was sitting next to Noel here, and I said it again. He heard me say it. That's so smart. So the second thing I want to talk about is, what do we know? And I divided this into 3 sections. I started it with 2, what's hard and what are the opportunities. And then as I was listening to people, I added some more. So what's hard? Okay, we'll start with what's hard. Everybody said, all 3 of the speakers said that the relationship between samples and distributions, going from samples to distributions, going from samples to populations, is really, really hard and necessary. Okay, so that's hard. Seeing the signal in the noise. Okay, Andy talked about that as uncertainty is hard, but I think that really what she was talking about was seeing the signal in noise, as Donnie put it. It's really hard, and it's what we try to do with data, what we have to help people do with data. Distributions I wrote on here twice. But there are other things that are hard, but those are particular things, you know, that all three of the people talked about, and that we've got to make sure that we, you know, that we help people understand. And somebody brought up, I can't remember if it was Donnie or if it was Rogers, it was Donnie, about the conceptions that the kids have about distributions. You might think that they think one thing about it, but then there's something that they say, and you have to listen really hard, and you find out, wait a minute, they didn't see that as a distribution at all. They saw it as something else. So it's not only hard for kids to understand some things, but it's going to be hard for teachers, hard for parents as teachers, right? Hard for whoever those people are who are helping people learn to identify what are the conceptions and misconceptions that the kids have, and to help them move through that. However, this is my favorite. I mean, we saw so many opportunities that the three speakers spoke about for helping kids get into playing with data, and I did say playing with data, being playful with data, learning from data, learning about data, right from the time that they're very, very young. And it could be even before school, right? I mean, you know, distribution of baby teeth, when you're losing baby teeth, or when you're getting baby teeth, watching siblings get teeth, and watching the people they hang out with get teeth. I mean, this is, there's so many things in the environment of the child. There's so many things in the environment of a youth, in the environment of a teenager, that they're excited about, that they could explore, and we could help them explore. So I just really love this idea of, actually Donnie sort of talked about it, this idea of there are opportunities all around us, right, for asking questions about data, for asking questions that require data collection. And the opportunities, I liked what Andy showed us about the 5 different units to be used in 5 different grades that had to do with using data, and but there's also all these opportunities to just take advantage of the questions that the kids are asking, and the opportunities in the curriculum itself for really dealing with data issues, for helping kids to become data analyzers, data foragers, data explainers. Other opportunities that we have. I think everybody said that not only are kids having lots of experiences with data, but they get really excited about using data to make predictions, right? We could take advantage of that. Andy talked about the kinds of interactive visual representations that let kids explain data, and that let kids explore data is what I mean, and allow them to, match up their intuitions about what's going on in data with what might actually be there. And Donnie actually talked about that too, with the picture that he had with the 2 circles. One of them is that you're using the data in order to make predictions, and those predictions turn into hypotheses that you actually put into a model. You run the model, you get more samples, and you see how does that connect, right? Kids like doing that kind of stuff. Technology allows easy finding and manipulation of data. The time's right? We can really take advantage of those things. I really like the idea of kids as data detectives, there's an opportunity that's around. So kids know how to talk about uncertainty. You can go from the ways that they talk about uncertainty to getting them to talk about uncertainty in more normative, more formal kinds of ways, if you need them to talk about it in more formal kinds of ways for different disciplines. So they naturally collect data and informally collect data. They don't write it down, but they notice things. They see some things a lot. They know they see some things a lot, and they make predictions from that. Rogers showed us that, right, with lots of the stuff about place that he was showing. They're naturally consumers of data, they're naturally producers of data, they're naturally critics of data, they're naturally storytellers with data, and we can take advantage of that. I think it's probably incumbent on us to take advantage of that in helping them to do that in more normative ways, so that as they grow up, they can become better and better, more excited and better at doing that. The third thing I wanted to talk about with respect to, what was this? With respect to what do we know, okay, is that, I talked about these things that are hard and talked about the opportunities, but there are other things that we know as well that are going to need to be necessities in helping kids to become really good data users, analyzers, collectors, creators. I don't know what it is, okay? I don't know what it is. We're going to need to have a word for that, and it's not data scientists. As Roger said, two of us were talking about that last night, and he said to me, "No, you can't say data scientists. We don't want them all to be data scientists." And I said, "Oh yeah, you're right." So first of all, necessities. There are underlying structures to I think Andy said this, there are underlying structures to the data that's available, and they're going to be needing to take data from different places and aggregate it and clean it up and know if they can trust it and all kinds of other things, okay? So that's got to be part of what we talk about when we talk about how to help them to be good data somethings. This thing we talked about what's really hard, differences between a case and summary data and distributions and populations. Correlations and causalities. I mean, I don't think anybody actually explicitly said this, but correlations and causality are not the same thing. And that's going to be a really important thing to, get them to ask questions about correlations. People talked about explaining, okay? One of the really big issues is getting them to ask questions when they see correlations, not seeing correlations as causality. I loved the idea of respect for outliers. That was like so clear and obvious that, oh yes, but we don't normally think about that when we think about data, right? And the other thing I guess we have to remember as necessities is not to forget John Tukey. That was something I got from that too. So I talked about why do we care and what's important. I talked about what do we know, and now I want to talk about how can we make a difference. Okay, and who are we? I mean, we're learning scientists here, we're teachers, we are creators of technology, we're researchers, we're a lot of different things. So I have 4 different things here, and then one more that I'm going to add myself. 4 different things, 4 different ways I think we can make a difference. So the first one is by reminding ourselves about what it's about, okay? It's not about making everybody into a data scientist. It's about data literacy, whatever data literacy is, okay? And I guess maybe you can't talk about people being data literacy people, right? So I don't know what the identity is. That's the thing we have to come up with a word for. But I think, what it's about is data literacy. It's not about data science. And what's data literacy? Well, maybe it has to do with kids as data detectives. It certainly has to do with data finding, foraging, and analysis. But we've just got to remember that like really one of the things that's really important is not just data literacy, but excitement about it. Helping people be excited about the data and the roles that it can play in their lives, and that they can do things with data. That excitement is a really important thing as well. Okay, the second thing I think in how we can make a difference is in the tools that we build. Okay, the tools that we build that can get integrated into school, into different disciplines, that can be used by kids, by grown-ups, by anybody, as they're trying to make sense. Okay, and the first kind of tool that's really important are interactive visual representations of data that can be explored and manipulated to make sense of it. Okay. Andy talked about that, and Tim is here. You're representing Bill.
No, he's representing himself.
No, but you're on the team for CODAP, right? Okay, so there's one. We gotta have tools that replace Tinkerplots, because Tinkerplots doesn't really work anymore. Okay, but no, it does?
It's fine.
It's fine?
Distribution and licensing thing is all messed up.
Distribution and licensing is messed up, but,
You can get it, right now you can get it for $7.
okay,
Yeah.
good.
From an Australian company. It's re-emerged.
Okay, I'm happy to hear that, because we need the modeling tools.
Yes.
And we need we need them not just to be tools for school, but somehow for these tools to be, tools for people, right? I mean, tools for exploration, the same way that, that everybody uses Word and Excel. Right, yeah, right. Well, all right, but, when I saw CODAP, I got so excited when Bill was showing me some new things about CODAP that were like Excel done right. I looked and I said, oh my gosh, people can really use this. To explore data, which you can't do with Excel. So we should be creating the tools and getting them out there, not just for use in school, but for use, as I said, by people. The third thing is research, and I think that it's not about the research that people do where it's angels on a pin. I really liked Donnie's research questions. What can youngsters understand about data and do with it? How does reasoning with data develop? Can we nurture reasoning with data? And then he added to that, what do learning environments need to look like for making that happen? And then Rogers added to that, how do professionals and kids develop their understandings of place using data? How do they use data to understand place? And that feels to me like a really important kind of subtopic of some of these things that Donnie was asking, in that it's one of these things that comes naturally. Okay, so really the question is, how does it come naturally, right? What are the things that they naturally do, and how can we take advantage of that? I think that that's what makes them interested, right? And what keeps them interested is another question. So I think that those are the really big research questions for us to be addressing. And I think that as we're doing that, we've got to remember, okay, that it's not just about big data. Everybody's talking about big data. But most of the data that you saw these three people talking about was not big data, okay? Some of it was archives, right? Some of it was little data sets that they collected themselves. And some of it was really big. Some of it was population data and was really big. But that's overwhelming. So, big data is overwhelming, and when we want kids we might want them to use it for something, but we have to help them use it well. So that's the third thing I think that we need to be doing to make a difference. The fourth thing is, and I had a lot of trouble figuring out how to say this one, and I finally decided to say it as curriculum units. Okay, and I'm about, I said earlier, I think it's not about curriculum units. I think it's about finding places where it fits in. So what I'm talking about when I talk about curriculum units is samples of where this all fits in the regular scheme of things in school, in every single grade, in every single subject, And in informal environments, you know, in science centers, in museums, but also in all the different kinds of after-school activities that you find in boys and girls clubs and weekend activities and family activities. You know, let's document all of those things. Where comes up, what we do, how to make it work. Because I think that the really important thing here is to increase the imaginations of all the different people who should be trying to help kids become data literate, and help teens become data literate, and help grown-ups families become data literate. And so we've got to show them how it could happen. So I think that's a really important thing that we need to be doing. Finally, I want to add one more thing, and that is what I said before. I think that we have to remember, okay, that we're not here, you know, as researchers. So much of research and education is about making things happen in today's classrooms, okay? What you can do in today's classrooms is very limited, and I think we can't make the future, we can't design the future unless we actually work towards designing the future. And a lot of the things that we're interested in, a lot of the things that we want to make happen, they will be entirely possible in the future. So we've got to figure out how to make them happen, whether or not they fit into the classrooms of particular teachers that we're working with today. Okay, we got to find those teachers whose classrooms things will fit into, and interact with those teachers so that it can become common 10 years from now. Okay, so those are things that I have to say based on the talks that were given this morning.